Hi everyone. I'm Roberta Cavaglià. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an Italian freelance journalist based in Barcelona, Spain. Yeah, sure. So from February to October 2024, Francesca Candioli, Stefania Prandi, and I interviewed more than 200 students and sources who, over the last 10 years, had attended one of the 10 journalism school recognized by the Ordine Nazionale dei Giornalisti, which is a body that regulates journalism profession and its members in Italy. And what we discovered is that sexism is really common in journalism schools. Half of the respondents that we interviewed stated that they have witnessed or were aware of sexual and verbal harassment, attempted sexual violence, stalking, blackmailing, gender discrimination. And half of our sources described in details the kind of abuses that they experienced. And they also send us names and screenshots and emails and documents about it. So according to the students, these abusive behaviors were carried out by teachers, tutors, and also colleagues inside and outside journalism schools, and as well by other journalists during the internships. But none of the people we heard had reported to the police what they had suffered. So we were really concerned about these findings because initially our idea was to investigate into newsrooms, but then we contacted some sources and they told us that also in journalism schools they had suffered sexual harassment. So it's really concerning that it starts in an educational space and then it continues during their work career. And essentially, it's because harassment is key to keep women outside of the public space. And in the case of female journalists, it also prevents them from telling stories about other women or other social minorities. And we also researched and found out that there's only one national research about harassment in journalism, and it was published in 2019, I think. And it found that 85% of women journalists working in newsroom said that they had been sexually harassed at least once during their career, and almost 3% had been raped, and 8% had experienced attempted sexual assault. And that's what we are investigating now with another investigation that it's coming out next year. Sexual harassment is in the fabric of our media system, and but it's really hard to talk about it because for women, consequences can be really terrible, and they are afraid of losing their jobs, really precarious jobs, because some had to pay for very expensive journalism school in order to get, after years of unpaid training, these jobs. And they are also afraid that no one will believe them. And essentially, they are afraid of losing everything and be humiliated. We call it sexual harassment, but it's not about sex. It's not about desire. It's about power. And some people have the power to do everything they want to women's bodies and minds. And we as society don't do enough to prevent that. So sexual harassment is not shameful as it should be. It's not a stain on someone, and it's just business as usual. And this, as I said before, has a huge impact on the media we consume, which is mostly controlled by old white heterosexual men. And so how can we even think or talk about media pluralism when our newsrooms are not inclusive or diverse, starting from women, which are just half of the world's population? I'm passionate about it because I think it's really unjust. And I mostly, part of my work is about injustice. And this is, it affects me, it affects the people I know. And in Italy, we're not really good. We're not really pioneers in fighting gender-based violence. Instead, I have another example, which is Spain. Spain is really at the front of the European effort to fight gender-based violence. And I really find it striking because they have so much in common, Italy and Spain. They are so culturally and geographically close, but they are so far apart when we think about gender-based violence. So I think that I'm passionate about it because I want to see more Spain in Italy and less Italy in Italy. When we talk about gender-based violence. I think that we are facing a huge backlash from the Me Too era. I think that nobody really cares anymore about sexual harassment in the workplace or at school or really anywhere because it's not mainstream anymore. It seems like the problem has been solved with, DE and I policies, etc., but it's not. But still, there is no, drive to talk about it more. It seems that we have other problems, but we haven't solved it. So I don't think that we can move forward. Well, I hope so. I see some other challenges that are really, important for me, and I hope that they will be solved in 10 years, but I don't know about that. And these challenges I'm talking about are these really strong internal divisions within feminism. So we have intersectional feminists and we have trans exclusionary movements, and we also have pro-sex work and abolitionist movements. And this is really important because these are us led in Spain, for example, to organize separate protests. And this dilutes our collective power, I think. And also, I think that European feminists should also be able to embrace the demands that come from the environmental movement and from the post-colonial movement, and, present as a united front with them. They are not well known, but they have a really fascinating history. So I'm talking about Maria Isabel Barreiro, Maria Teresa Horta, Maria Velho da Costa, which are three Portuguese writers, also known as the Three Marias. And in 1972, they published a book called New Portuguese Letters. And so it was before the Portuguese Revolution or the Carnation Revolution. They wrote this book together. We don't know which one wrote what. But it was a huge success and also a huge problem for them because it was a masterpiece, but it was quickly banned by censors because it was described as pornographic and offensive to public moral because it also talked about, female pleasure. So the three Marias were arrested and imprisoned, but before being arrested and imprisoned, they managed to smuggle a copy of their book to France. This book arrived in the hands of Simone de Beauvoir and the French women's liberation movement. So the book became internationally famous. They became internationally famous. And following the Carnation Revolution, the trial was terminated and the authors were pardoned. And their book, New Portuguese Letter, is a contemporary masterpiece in, Portuguese feminism. I think we should keep an eye on Spain. I'm repetitive, but for years the government has been really pioneer in laws against gender-based violence, and I hope and I think it will continue to be so in the future. So maybe Spain is a bit underrated, but when it comes to gender-based violence, we should really keep an eye on this country.